But, you know, and there was a time where we were in England together.
Yeah.
And Kirk was being hounded by the press. And he ran into my room. And he fell down on his knees and he just kept saying, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. And because the pressure sometimes gets so great on us. And we prayed together in there because we were all at that big place. And we prayed together. But that, I want to talk to them about the type of ministry that they don't understand that we have. It's not just the video. It's not just the CDs. It's not just the television appearances. But there's a pressure that goes along with this ministry that most people don't understand when they're asking for it. We've seen some things. We've gone through things. People not understanding really how deep and intense it is to be called by God to minister to not just a group of people, but to a world. Touch on that.
You also make a lot of mistakes. You know, you make a lot of mistakes because you're trying to be in but not of.
Right.
And it's very hard to be in and out of. It's almost like walking into a room of cigarette smokers and trying to leave out without smelling like smoke.
Right.
You know, and then you find out later that the experts say the secondhand smoke is even more dangerous.
Right.
So sometimes you don't have to go to the clubs and you don't have to go to the after parties and you don't even have to do what the world is doing, but you can be in it so long that sometimes you develop their swagger.
Right.
And you forget that you're only there to represent him, but then sometimes you think that you got to represent yourself. And you don't even realize it sometimes. You don't always realize that you've gone over there and you want to make it home.
Right.
And so many times you say that, you know, you're crossing over to take the crossover, but a lot of times you're trying to cross over to take Kirk over. You know, and you know, there have been a lot of times that I've been guilty of that, you know, and I'm still striving to learn how to be in but not of.
Right.
And it's a very painful process, but because I don't want to keep letting the Lord down and keep forgetting that it's all about him. And so just like a loving father, he has to lovingly remind me that he wants me, but he don't need me.
Mm-hmm. But that's the struggle. That's the struggle that we have in this ministry, in the visible, highly visible ministry. The balance.
I apologize, but I'm so short. I'm having a hard time doing like you. I'm trying.
That's all right, man. That's okay. Really?
I can't.
Okay. Should we?
I need a baby chair.
Should we get a smaller chair?
I need a baby chair.
But that's the problem. The problem is the balance. Keeping the balance is always the problem.
Always.
You know, because when people see you in a specific place, they put you in an unrealistic position.
Yeah.
And they want you to fulfill their desires.
Yeah.
It's like Israel, you know. They wanted a king. Because all the neighboring countries had a king.
Preach.
And they didn't really understand what they were asking for.
Yeah.
The focus was always God.
Yes.
But when they wanted a king, they made an icon out of the king.
Yes.
And the one that they chose couldn't handle the pressure.
That's good, man.
Saul couldn't handle the pressure of being the first king of Israel. And so he failed.
Yeah.
David came in and had a spirit of worship, a spirit of praise, excellence, and wanted to honor God. But the pressure again caused David to fall and fail. People don't understand the pressure that goes and the balance that we need to have. The only thing about David is he had a Nathan.
Yeah.
Whereas Saul had a Samuel.
And a lot of people don't realize, for me, a lot of times you've been my Nathan.
Man. You try to mess me up, and I'm not going to let you do this. But that's iron sharpening iron. I went through a very bad situation in October, and where the media was tearing into me because of my stance that I take. And politics sometimes is a very, very strong and intense entity.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Being kind. And when I went through, there was only two people that really stuck with me and called me and helped me out. It was Kirby John Caldwell from Windsor Village, who stuck next to me like he was my own blood.
Wow.
And it was a brother named Kirk Franklin, who called me up and said, "Where are you? I'm coming to your house now. Where are you? Tell me where you are." And I was so going through an emotional upheaval that I said, "No, I don't want to be around anybody."
He avoided me. He wouldn't turn my call.
See, because he's going to come in and jump on my bed.
Yes.
He's The way, see, some of you all that didn't see the behind the scenes before we started, he came in and jumped right on Fred Hammond.
Fred Hammond.
And, you know, just jumped up in his chest and just wrapped himself like a spider monkey. Like a spider monkey, ladies and gentlemen, spider monkey.
Fred's my dude like that too, though, man. Fred is somebody else that will call me and let me know when I'm smelling myself and when I'm forgetting.
No.
Y'all remember when Mama used to say that? Yeah.
But that's the thing that we need, because you can, like Kirk was saying, you can start to feel and believe the hype.
You can believe the hype.
People will tell you how great you are until you start singing the same song. How great I am, how great I am. and it takes brothers and sisters to come and say, hey, what I'm seeing is not God.
Yeah.
I see a whole lot of you, but I don't see God.
That's good, man.
And that's what we need. We need that iron to sharpen the iron, so this way the ministry stays pure.
Yes, sir.
And that we can take it around the world without pretense. There was a period where we had to pretend like we were right.
Yeah.
When we were doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
But now God's given us this platform, and we've chosen, our generations of musicians and gospel artists and ministers have chosen transparency.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes you get ridiculed for the transparency.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
God knows I know. You know, I talk about my background and my history with struggling with sexuality. Yeah. And you talked about your struggle with pornography. Yeah. Went on to one of the most prestigious shows, Oprah. Yeah. And whereas you thought the saints and the body of Christ would be applauding, sometimes they take the brick. They're the first one to throw that brick and bust you in the head to the white meat show. Yeah. You know? Talk to me about that, how the transparency is needed and how sometimes it catches us off guard that it's not readily accepted.
It's no secret that in the church community I've always talked about, you know, being very promiscuous when I was young as a kid, and that's how I was able to escape, you know, the lack of love I have from not having a mother and father and being adopted, and got introduced to a lot of ugly stuff when I was a kid. And I was on the cover of Charisma magazine talking about it. I was on 700 Club talking about it. I was on TBN with Bishop Jakes and CCM magazine. So in the church community, on tour, you and I would stand on tour every night, and we talk about it. So I'd been talking about it for years in my church community, and so everybody would applaud me when I talked about it in my community. Well, the producers of the Oprah Winfrey Show had heard about me talking about it, and so they called and asked if I would be interested in being a part of a show that they were doing. And so I called my wife and told them that they called me, and she was so excited, and she was very proud of me. I called my pastor and asked his advice, and he thought that it would be a great opportunity to, you know, to just expand, you know, telling people about just God's living power. And one thing I found out by doing the Oprah Winfrey Show, especially when it comes to mainstream, because again, in the church community, talking about it is okay. Right. But what I found out about in mainstream, that the culture is not comfortable with testimonies. Right. We as a culture, we are more comfortable with people getting busted. Than we are with people telling on themselves. Right. But because it's like if I would have been on CNN coming out of some motel or some porn shop, you know, with a jacket over my head, I'm like, oh, did you see Kirk? Oh, cha 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 cha, wootu 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 wootu. You know, it would have been. But when I choose to share my own junk, what it does for people with junk, it makes them feel uncomfortable, because it makes them wonder, well, am I going to have to do that too? Same thing. Where when people testify and share their own stuff, it makes everybody uncomfortable, because we're not used to that. Right. We're used to people falling. We're not used to people standing. And so, you know, there were a lot of people that felt like that was my own business, and I should have stayed at home and should have been, because before that, you know, you never really heard nothing about me. I mean, the only thing people really said negative about me before that is that sometimes my music a little too worldly. You know, people say, you know, my music was too much, but you didn't really hear nothing, you know, really about you didn't hear much about my character, about me stealing money and showing up at churches late, and I mean, you know, you never heard stuff about that about me. And so, one thing that I really learned is that if you're going to be a disciple, that's not always going to be popular. Right. It's not going to always be famous.